Hi everybody, it's Alison from DigiTeach, and in this video today we are going to be looking at TPR, Total Physical Response. It's possibly one of the best and the biggest tools you have if you want to be great at providing an online lesson. Coming right up. So what is TPR and where did it come from and why do we use it? These are probably the three biggest questions you have right now. If you've ever wanted to teach online, and in particular teach English online, TPR is going to be one of your biggest tools. TPR is a technique and a strategy, in a sense, to help with language acquisition. It was developed by Dr. Astor, who was a professor of psychology, and he actually invested a lot of state-funded money over 20 years to fully research this technique that so many ESL in particular teachers use. So let's have a look at the benefits of TPR in your classroom. Now, when you're teaching any language, TPR is an excellent resource that you have within yourself. You are basically using your body to encourage, engage, and explain a physical and potentially a mental process or thought. Now, if you're teaching in a classroom, you can do this with your students around you, and you often see this in ESL classrooms where the teacher will be in the middle of a classroom or at the front of the class, and she will be acting out, or he will be acting out some actions. For example, let's jump, jump, jump. And then eventually the students will repeat after the teacher has done the action. As the student becomes more capable and confident in jumping at the sound of the word jump, the teacher can remove the action, and then the student becomes dependent on the instruction, the verbal instruction, the language instruction, jump, without the action. But before they get to that, they need help with acquiring the language. And this is where TPR comes from. And if we actually look back in nature, right back to maybe the animal world, we can see that babies learn from their parents, from the mother and the father, by TPR, total physical response. So how do we really use this when we're teaching online? There are two main reasons. The first one is space. All you have is this screen, what you can see and the student can see. And to make the screen a lot more interesting, a lot more fun, and a lot more productive so that your student can learn the language, you use TPR. And I'm going to give you some examples. Let's eat. Eat. Look. Eat. Eat. I'm going to explain and break some of these things down a little bit later on, but in this space, you have demonstrated exactly what you are trying to communicate, and the student can clearly see that and hear it. If you were in a big classroom in a school or in a college, it would perhaps be a little bit more diluted with other noise and the actions of other students. So by using TPR in an online classroom, a student is able to really get focus. You are able to help the student get good focus, and they're able to interact and engage, which is necessary because all you have is this. And if you don't use TPR, you're just going to be sitting, maybe talking, not moving your head or your body. The student will do the same. It will be very boring and the student will probably fall asleep. I have been in a few classes where students who have taken so many classes, because lots of Chinese students in it in particular take a lot of classes because education is so important to them, that sometimes their lessons can go on to 8 to 9 and 10 o'clock at night, and they can get a little bit tired. And this is another reason for TPR. You keep your student interested and invigorated, and you keep the parents happy and their companies happy. So those are the two main reasons that you use TPR. Now let's look at some examples, okay, of TPR. So one of the best things really about TPR is you're actually able to help your student recognise and appreciate culture. For example, in certain cultures, it isn't really considered to use lots of facial expression. It is in the American culture and it is in the English culture. Equally, gestures are very important in communication. And so when you're teaching a student how to say hello, hello, you use your hand and your voice. If you just said hello, hello, and those were the first words the student had heard, would they really understand what it meant? So using gestures are very important to help the student understand the culture of the language. The other element is with your hands, you can use it to point to your mouth, for example, for pronunciation. I always cup my hands as well, like listen, listen, hello, 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 or finger point, look, 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 look. You can alternate them as well, depending on the capability of the student. You can also use your fingers when you're counting out syllables or sound units in a word. For example, elephant, elephant, elephant. You could, looking for my prop, even have elephant. Can you be an elephant? Elephant. Good. So all of these elements of you using your TPR are very, very useful for the student. I also use what I call my robot hands. When I have students that are perhaps a little bit older than the preschool or the primary age, so let's say beginner teens, and they are doing more academic English, and they're getting into much longer words, instead of using lots of TPR, because they're obviously at the age where they don't want to be perhaps seen as using lots of TPR, you can use something, you can kind of graduate it through the ages. And I have something which I call my robot arms. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, I might say something like philosophy, 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 and then I make it into a game. Or if it's a student who you think would it would like perhaps an example with food, you could maybe say the sandwich squasher, philosophy, squasher, philosophy, and it helps them to have fun with the language. And that's the other element of TPR. Language acquisition for any student is going to be a lot more productive if it is 1, less stressful, 2, fun, and 3, memorable. So when you as a teacher are being a little bit silly and having a bit of fun, you help your student relax, even the older ones and sometimes the adult ones. And when they relax, they are more susceptible to learn or to want to learn. There is also the element of judgment, particularly with Chinese students. They don't want to be seen as doing something wrong. They're very eager not to fail, and some lack confidence if they think they're going to get something wrong. So I sometimes make a joke when I'm teaching online, and I will purposely say something wrong and oh teacher, and make a little bit of a joke of myself to help them realise that it's okay if they make a mistake, okay, because we want to encourage students to make mistakes in a sense, because that's how you can correct them and how you can help them to become a better student, and also to have to trust you a lot as well, which is kind of necessary when you're teaching online. Okay, so the next part I'm going to come to are giving instructions and corrections using TPR. So the first one, it's obviously sit down, stand up. Sit down, stand up. With younger children, when they're writing, you can act out the letters. Big A for teacher Alison. Little A, little A, big A. Okay, and always draw lots of attention to your mouth. It's very important. In particular, your tongue. Sometimes when you have a student that is really not being able to pronounce the word correctly, ask them to look at my tongue. And make a point of saying teeth. Look. This is a key technique I use when I'm teaching online, and it helps students with their pronunciation, because depending on which country the student comes from, where the vowels are formed in their mouth with the tongue, which is within the cardinal vowel system, don't want to get too techie on you, but the actual vowels roll off the tongue in different places depending on the language of each student. So for example, where we would where the vowel sounds would be generated from with the positioning of the tongue in English, the A, E, I, O, U, would be different to perhaps Indian or Chinese. So it's actually quite, although you might think, oh, that's a bit silly, it isn't. It's incredibly complex, actually. So to help them understand, to get the correct sound, they need to have the tongue in the right place. and also don't be afraid to help them understand the roof of the mouth, the bottom of the mouth, and the tongue between the teeth. And I do actually have little diagrams for that on sticks, lollipop sticks, that I use as my props as well, and we make a little game out of that. So quite often online students need to be able to interact with a whiteboard. Lots of ESL platforms will either have their own where students draw on the screen. So circle, circle. Can you circle? Circle. Okay. Can you circle the rabbit? Rabbit, circle. And then you wait. And then if they don't get it, you repeat it again. So that's one way that you can use a TPR to give instructions. And another way you can use TPR is with corrections. So quite often non-native speakers and learners of English in particular will forget to use the definite or the indefinite article. So instead of saying I see a car, they'll say I see car, or I car see, I see car, and they forget to say I see a car or I see the car. So instead of saying, no, you got that wrong, which obviously you never do, you say, oh, okay, I see car. Let me think. I see car. Listen. I see the car. I see the car. I see the car. Okay? Now your turn. And they will repeat. So that's another way, using your fingers to positively correct in the online classroom. Okay, my other kind of top tip really with TPR in the classroom is with long vowels and short vowels, or vowels anyway in general. In fact, I could do a whole series on teaching vowels, because it seems to be one of the biggest issues that ESL learners have when they are learning their pronunciation. And you can come across students that are clearly very capable in their written and their written English, and also to a point their reading of English, and they can understand it very, very well. But when it comes to pronouncing lots of vowels, they are quite often, that's the area I find that they fall down. So obviously teaching long vowels and short vowels, long vowels and short vowels. So when I'm explaining the word, for example, long, long, on, look, on, long, use your hands, and cat, 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 listen, cat, cat, because they often forget that on the end, or it's too heavy. So that's another way that you can use TPR in the classroom to help your students. I hope that's really useful for you, and if you want any more information, tips, techniques, or even some of the DigiTeach courses, then click on the link below, go along to digiteachonline.com and have a look at what we're doing in the online teaching world today. Have a great day. Goodbye.